Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings. But this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018. And no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Anissa Gray is the author of Life and Other Love Songs. And actually, for those of you who are in my book club, you can go to zibbysbookclub.com. This is my pick for, I think, June. We will be reading this together, and I'm very excited. Anissa is a senior writer at CNN Worldwide and a contributor to Emmy and DuPont Columbia award-winning coverage of some of the most consequential stories of our time. She began her career at Reuters as a reporter based in New York, covering business news and international finance. Born in St. Joseph, Michigan, Gray studied English and American literature at New York University. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her wife, and this is her second time on the podcast. Welcome, Anissa. Thanks so much for coming back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Last time you were here for the care and feeding of ravenously hungry girls, and now you are back for Life and Other Love Songs. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back, Zibby.
As I was just saying a second ago, I just enjoyed this book so much. And this is going to be our Zibby's book club pick that we'll have our meeting. I think it's June 6th or something. I think June 6th. So very excited.
Until the 6th. Yeah.
Until the 6th. Excited to have my book club read it and all of that. Anissa, tell everybody what your book is about.
Life and Other Love Songs is a story about what happens to a family after the father disappears. So the father in this family, Oz Armstead, fairly ordinary guy, at least on the surface. He goes missing on his 37th birthday. He leaves behind a wife, Deborah, who is an aspiring singer, but she's coming to terms with life as a suburban housewife, which is far outside anything she had ever imagined for herself. They have a daughter, Trinity, who they adore. So when Oz disappears for Deborah and Trinity, it absolutely upends everything. And as the story moves forward and we come to learn with them, the reasons how and why Oz disappears, it only gets more troubling.
You do such a good job of sort of setting the stage and having us really fall in love with them as a couple at the beginning. You really take us back so that you feel very invested in the characters, right? You set the scene early on with this party where they meet and you go back and forth with perspective, which I love, so that you see how everybody's feeling. Although I feel like you had first person for Deborah, but wasn't Oz third person, or
he was, yeah.
So tell me about that choice.
I knew immediately that Oz was going to be written in third person because of sort of the trajectory of his story. For me, it was almost not a choice. But this was, for me as a writer, one of the first times I was writing in third person. So it's an interesting construct for me because I have to sort of have in my head, well, who is speaking? Who is this person telling me about Oz? So in my mind, it was Trinity telling us about her father in third person. So yeah.
And what about Deborah being in first person?
First person, I think with Deborah, it was really important to be very close to Deborah because so much of her emotional journey, we were going to be with her quite a long time. I just wanted us to see it directly through her eyes. And the same with Trinity. Trinity is also written in first person. Right. I wanted these two women to tell their own stories.
And you jump in time too, because you start out with Trinity's perspective. I should have mentioned that. I'm sorry. But you start out with her perspective and then jump back in time and show us the evolution of the whole relationship and everything else. And you just develop all the characters so well. Even the cousin while she's working in the kitchen and Deborah really just wants her to introduce her to Oz at the very beginning, and just everybody is so vivid and just jumps off off the page, not to mention all the emotion behind it as well. You have this one scene, and I don't know, this is sort of like a random example, but in the middle of the book where it really shows, and I think you were saying this with the suburban mom-ish scene. Can I just read this like one paragraph here?
Oh, yeah, please do. Yes.
It's from 1975, and you say, Oz came home and found Deborah alone. She was sitting at the kitchen table having a glass of wine in the middle of the afternoon. She seemed surprised when he looked through the cutout to the kitchen and saw him coming through the garage door. She pushed the wine away like it wasn't hers, like a friend might show up and fill the empty chair next to her and drink it. Deborah got to her feet and asked him, shouldn't you be at work? Shouldn't you be doing something other than drinking in the middle of the day? Shouldn't you be doing something other than checking up on me? Well, if you would do what you should be doing instead of that, he glanced at the wine glass, I wouldn't feel the need to check up on you. He went over and snatched up the glass from the table. He smacked Deborah's hand away when she tried to take it back, a little harder than he intended, apparently, because she cradled her hand to her chest. He didn't apologize. He wasn't the one who should be apologizing for this. He stalked over to the sink. He dumped the glass, staring at her the whole time. He held her gaze until she looked away, ashamed. It wasn't checking up on you, by the way, he said. Just like such a moment of like control, despair, different perspectives on the same situation, communication. Tell me about just that as an example.
No, I'm glad you picked that scene, because when I was writing it, and I can remember vividly, I wanted to sort of crystallize Oz's drive and desire for this perfect family, and Deborah's resistance, hesitance, and just she's utterly lost in this moment in the story. And I think in that scene, the tension between the two of them, you see them in their purest form in that moment, having, at this point in the book, they've come through sort of the beautiful honeymoon, love stage, and they're doing life for real, and they have very different ideas about how life should be done.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's all just so visual.
Thank you.
How did you, I mean, this is like an impossible question. How did you come up with this? But like, what was the initial nugget of an idea for this, and how did it grow the way it did?
Yeah. So some years ago, I heard a story about, real life story about suburban family. Dad goes to work, doesn't come home, never to be heard from again. In this family, the sort of fallout from that, that trauma sort of rippled through this family for at least the two generations that I know of. And I sort of watched how they dealt with it. And it was just something that kind of stayed with me for years. And after I finished Care and Feeding, I just started thinking about, as a writer often does, what ifs. What if they found someone you loved disappeared, and unlike this family, you found out exactly what the reason was. What would that do to you? What if it upended everything you thought you knew about this person, everything you thought you both understood in the formation of your relationship and your family? What happens with that? And so I sat down with all of these what ifs, and the Armstead family was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. All of them sort of around the table. Did you know where you were headed? Like the whole time? Did you know where it would end?
I didn't. So my writing process is I don't write to an outline. I'll write like the sort of skeleton of the book, like a very rough sort of draft that gives me a sense of where I might be going. So, after I wrote that little skeleton, I had a sense of that I wanted a funeral in the beginning and a wedding at the end. Now, how to get there, that's the tricky part. But it was a journey, and the way I write is incredibly inefficient. It's just, trial and error, writing into dark alleys and finding out that's not the way, and going down this street and finding out, oh, that is the way. So, yeah, it was really just feeling my way and finding my way, which is kind of how I write.
Very cool. And how long did this whole thing take? I feel like you were just on for the other book, but whatever.
I know. I went back and listened to that interview.
You did?
Yeah. And you asked me, just like, well, are you working on something else? And I was working on this book, and I talked about, I was working on a smaller family. But it took about two years, a little over two. And over that period of time, a lot of life happened. it was a sort of a difficult period to write for me. There, I lost my father at the beginning, which was, destabilizing, in that I was writing this book about a father who disappears, but in some ways it was therapeutic to write about it. And then there was the pandemic, of course. I happened to be an extreme introvert, and I was like, I'm totally built for this. Lockdown, bring it on. I was not built for it. And I just developed terrible insomnia that I had to, literally be treated for, but worked out of that and kept working on the book. And right there at the end, life said, you know what? How about a complete hysterectomy? And there was that. So, so automatic menopause, hot flash, all of the stuff that comes along with it, right there in final edits. But I had a great team, my editor, Amanda, my agent, Michelle, saw me through it, and we got the book done. And it was an incredible journey, unlike any writing experience I'd ever had.
It's almost like those events of your life can just be tucked away. And maybe you could, when you sort of put this back on the shelf, it's almost like those experiences you could almost put back on the shelf. Like, okay, I found a container for some of that stuff.
In a lot of ways, that's what it feels like. I look at this book, and it is an encapsulation of certainly of the story of these characters, but also a story of my own life in writing it.
Well, I'm really sorry about your father, and especially knowing, how the characters develop here, and the love and all of it. I'm really sorry. And of course, the pandemic.
Thank you. Yeah.
I had a hysterectomy myself. It is not fun.
No, it is not.
It was really, honestly, so painful afterwards. It was so unexpectedly painful.
Yeah, mine was too, especially after my gynecologist told me, I was back to work in 2 weeks. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's not happening over here.
Yeah. I was like walking, holding the walls of my hallway, ow. But,
very painful.
Yeah. So fun being a woman.
And I really appreciate estrogen in ways I never had before, because the immediate menopause, that's something.
Yeah, they left my this is now overly too much information, but they did leave my ovaries. But,
okay, well, yeah.
It ended up making no difference because I'm already of the age. So, but yeah, that was like 7 years ago or something. It was right before the holidays for me, and everybody was off traveling or going with family, and I had to cancel everything and hunker down, and I was on my hands and knees trying to wrap gifts. Anyway.
That's it. That's exactly the period for me too. It was right before Thanksgiving. Totally canceled all Thanksgiving plans. And yeah, it was a lot.
At least writing is I had a job at one point, stocking shelves. Do you know what I mean? At least you're sedentary enough, right? You can get it done theoretically.
But that's true. And that's one of the things, you sort of look at the blessings.
Yeah.
I know people who have very physical jobs, and they would not have been able to, they would have lost a lot of time, and, to be able to sit on the couch, and, just sitting there with the computer, not a lot to complain about.
Although I really think I'm developing trouble with my shoulders and my wrists. And I'm I don't know, maybe I'm sitting here too much, I'm totally out of alignment. Oh my goodness. It's always something. So when you think of the best things that are going to come out of this book, what are you hoping? Who are you hoping to see themselves, or what emotional response would be most satisfying for you?
Well, I think for me, I've been a reader, pretty much ever since I, could recognize words in a book. And there's this feeling I get when I close the book on a really good book. I mean, it's very simple and not profound at all. But when you read a good book and there's then it kind of stays with you, and you see it on the shelf, and it sort of brings you thinking about the characters. If someone can come away with that feeling, that is for me such a special feeling, and you don't get it with every book. If someone can come away with that feeling like they've been with these characters, they've cared about these characters, they sometimes think about these characters and hope they're okay, that would mean the world to me, because that means I've written a pretty good story. And that's always my goal.
Well, I feel that way. And you have written a really good story. And
thank you so much.
People are going to flip out about it. I don't even know why we're doing this interview. Your book's not coming out till April. And here we are. It's January. So anyway, I know this is, I think we're going to have to like hold this interview. I'm like, why is this even on my calendar? But whatever, here we are. So great. I'm glad
they told me to put to get on as soon as possible.
No, it's great. I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, does that really say 4? I'm like, putting my glasses on. Like, okay, I haven't even read half my January books yet, but it's fine.
I'm so sorry.
No.
They told me as soon as possible. Get on the calendar.
It's fine. It's great. I'm delighted because now I had the chance to, get the book club with you all set up and get a sneak peek. I bet by the time this airs, you'll be on all sorts of lists because this book is wonderful. And you can say, remember that podcast I had like 100 years ago about this book? Anyway, that could be mine.
Well, no, this is, and for me, it's something great to do out of the gate because I enjoyed talking to you so much the last time. But for this to be the first event out of the gate is quite nice for me.
Oh, good. Well, I enjoyed talking to you last time and this time, and I'm really a huge fan of how you write and your books. And I was so excited when I saw a new book coming out, and then I was like, oh my gosh, from the very beginning, like in it, totally in it, loving it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Oh, I should ask now, in case we're on here a third time, are you working on another book already? And what can you tell me that we can check our facts next time?
Yeah, I am working on another book. I'm in the stage where I'm about to sit down and actually write it out. It'll come to me first, the rough idea, but it doesn't really live until I start typing it. So I'm about to start typing it next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's exciting. All right. Well, good luck with that and have fun with all the press. And I hope that, whatever your life events are contained in the next book are not as traumatic and that you have an easier go of it within the next set of pages.
Yeah, I hope so too. So far right now, life is incredibly good. I feel incredibly blessed and I'm so happy to see this book out there. I hope people enjoy it.
Wonderful. Well, I'm knocking wood for you. All
right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, Anissa. Take care.
Bye, Zibby.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.